The Transition series is brought to you by our good friends at A7. You care about your training and take it seriously, so take your clothing and cleansing seriously too. I've talked about how I use and love A7's patent-pending bar grip shirt that holds the bar in place as you squat and glues your shoulders to the bench while you bench. But A7's gear can improve your training no matter what your goals. They have USAPL and IPF approved competition gear for you powerlifters out there. They also carry training clothes for everyday workouts, including compression pants and shorts, squat shorts, elbow sleeves, and shaker bottles. And this is key. When you're done working out, don't wash those shirts with junky, chemical-filled, detergent-based soaps like you use in your washing machine. Use A7's natural soaps made with fats, oils, and lye, just like your grandparents used. It will actually prolong the life of all of your clothing, not just your A7 bar grip shirts. A7 puts their heart behind their work, and I'm grateful to have them as a sponsor for the series. Go to a7.co, that's A7.co to upgrade your wardrobe. A7, demand greatness.
Welcome to the Professional Transition Series. I'm CJ Gocher, and in these episodes, I'll be interviewing guests at different stages along the coach's journey who have found their own path to bring strength and health to their friends, family, and beyond. Hey, this is the Barbell Logic Podcast. I'm CJ Gocher, and today I have with me David Aguilera. So David was with us with Coaching Academy Group 25. He's the president of the Bhaktivedanta Academy. I probably mispronounced that. Principal of the Bhaktivedanta Academy, a Montessori spiritually centered school, and the owner of Iron Eagle Strength out of his garage. The guy's had such a fascinating, experience through when he was one of my Coaching Academy students to now. Wanted to bring him on to talk through some of that journey. Please, if you could correct me, is there anything else going on for you that I missed, or did I catch something wrong there?
No, you got it mostly right, CJ. It's great to be here with you, part of infamous Group 25 in the Barbell Coaching Academy. It's nice to see you again. It's nice to reconnect. And yeah, you got it mostly right. Yeah, I'm head of school at Bhaktivedanta Academy. It's a mouthful, so usually we just say BV Academy, so it makes it a little easier.
So for those who aren't familiar, the Legacy Coaching Academy, we would take groups of 6 to 10 through a class. So my first Coaching Academy group as a teacher was Group 25 with this, ragged band of miscreants, of whom David was one, and that has grown into now the principal's course, where it's, separate and, it's the self-paced online course. So a little bit different, but that let men over 26 weeks, David and us got to talk. We got to learn about our coaching experience and our background. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in, because even over the course of that class, a lot changed for you. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, and then the pandemic, it's quite a story. So I'd like to start with what got you into training? Even before we talk coaching, what got you into lifting?
That's interesting. Middle age essentially got me into lifting. I got into my 40s and I was like, wow, I got to do something, because the next half of my life is not going to be looking very good if I don't commit to something that I could actually just invest myself in from a physical development standpoint. When I was younger, in my teens, early 20s, like a lot of us, probably messed around in the gym a bit with barbells and such, but never truly trained. And so I kind of came in through the 5x5 strong lifts path a little bit. So I started that program. I actually was doing it with my wife and was, progressing along. For somebody who has had no experience whatsoever, it wasn't a bad start, actually, now that I look back on it. And then when I was in the gym one day, some guy that was there that was, would just see periodically, he'd say, "Hey, have you seen the Starting Strength book?" So he actually gave me a copy of Starting Strength that he had borrowed from the library. And I started looking at that. And that's kind of what got me on the path a little bit in terms of barbell training and, in a serious way. But it really is that. It's just like, I got to do something. I got to find something that inspires me. Barbell training is something I just enjoy. I mean, actually, I really enjoy doing it. Not that it's easy, but it's something I find myself, being able to commit to. And that's what really brought me into it.
That to me is so interesting because so many of us find, barbell training, not for me, obviously, I'm not at 40 yet, but for so many of our lifters, there's kind of that turning point, where we hit our bodies aren't quite working the way we expect them to. And we're like, what's the answer here? What is my ticket to, remaining mobile and healthy as I keep going? And for you, it was barbell training, which is super cool. Like in that particular path then, so you were working out at commercial gyms, you started with the Strong Lift program, familiarized with the Starting Strength book, and then did you realize you were going to become a coach? When did that happen for you?
I think a couple years in, when I look back on it, like I said, I started this with my wife, and the dynamic was such that, I would introduce something, we'd do it together. I kept finding myself in this position of like, hey, am I doing this the right way? I'm still in the midst of learning it myself. I'm trying to figure it out. And so even from the beginning, it was a little bit like that, where I was kind of in this role of, hey, what am I going to get right here? And so I'd have to go and look stuff up and watch video and this and that and come back to it. And so, but I'd say 2 to 3 years in is when I was thinking, hey, this could actually be something that I could help others with. And for me, that's been kind of a driving force for me in my life. I'm the type of person, I have to have meaning in the work that I do. And for me, being in a position where I can actually help others in something that can have tangible meaning, impact in their life, that inspires me. And so I've seen coaching as that. It's a way that I can help others also not go down a path of just going into old age and being dependent on others and all this kind of stuff. And I also see the tangible benefit in terms of the mental standpoint. For me, like I see the physical benefit, but I see the mental benefits just as much. And particularly in my situation, I get an opportunity to interact with teenagers every day, having an opportunity to work with them as well and see that confidence just kind of swell up in them when, wow, I just did something I never imagined I'd be able to do. And what that carries forth in life is just that it just inspires me. I mean, it's just something that really just makes me want to keep coming back to it and be better at it.
Not to take a total detour. So, head of school at BV Academy, it seems like a running thread. So, bringing education, bringing, learning, mental growth with spiritual growth as well, the intention for your school and what you want for your students. The same
Right.
bringing physical growth in training with, mental growth or hardiness or some kind of, self-development, self-finding. That seems to be part of your general path, trying to kind of bring it all together. Do you see physical training as part of what you do as head of school? Or do you see kind of what you do as head of school, that education piece, as part of what you do as a coach?
That's interesting. Both, actually. I think a lot of things that I've learned over my years being in that role, I bring into the gym in terms of interaction with clients, in terms of how I approach a lot of things. I bring that in, but then also what I'm gaining in the gym personally, I'm bringing back into the work that I do. And again, even just for myself, just that it's centering, it's grounding for me to get in the gym, get a workout in, and then I can approach my day with just at a different level than I would be if I just wasn't committed to anything like that. And so they both go hand in hand to me.
So it's almost like a daily practice, or if not maybe daily, but it's a routine practice of getting in and finding your center, getting in the iron, and then, bringing that to the rest of your day.
Definitely. I mean, my time in the gym is kind of my happy place a little bit. I get to come in here. I just get to train. I could put everything else aside and I can just focus on that. And it's rejuvenating for me to be able to do that.
It seems like there's two kinds of people. I mean, there's the people who put people into categories of two and then other people. But it seems like there's two kinds of people. The people who enjoy going to the gym, who enjoy lifting the weight. And then the people who, take it as medicine. The people who they do it because they have to reach their goals or something like that. And I'm probably more in the second camp, actually. But it's really cool. And I love, when students and lifters like are in that first camp, because it's like, oh, they actually like this, which is awesome.
I don't want to misstate. There definitely are the days, particularly those early mornings, I come in here and I'm like, I do not want to squat. I do not want to do this, but I know it's good for me to do it. I think I'm kind of like in the middle ground as far as that goes, but I come out of it feeling very happy that I did it. So sometimes in the middle of it, it's a bit of a push, kind of that mental boxing match going on round by round as you kind of get through each set. But at the end, I'm happy I'm in here and I'm grateful for it.
It's like another set of 5. Ugh.
Yep.
Pause squats. Ugh. Definitely hear you on that one. So at this point, you kind of realized you were going to be a coach. And I love the way you framed it. You're training with your wife. So many people kind of like, they kind of toss that one aside. They're like, oh, ho, ho, don't date your client, don't train your girlfriend, don't train your wife. That's going to go terribly. But oftentimes I see it going just fine. So in your case, though, you're kind of co-learning, right? You're like half a step ahead of her, maybe just because you're more exposed to the community and the barbell training process. So you're kind of bringing that in and you're already coaching a little bit in that context. Then you realize 2-3 years in, maybe I could bring this out broader. Did you build the home gym before or after you started the coaching academy?
Before, actually. Yeah, I used to work from home before I got into education and like that. I worked from home. So I had actually a small home office here that frankly, I didn't really use a whole lot. And so when barbell training became just a consistent, regular endeavor, it was like, hey, why don't I make use of this space? And so with my wife's blessing, reconverted it essentially and got a squat rack in here. And it was a tight space. It was a little over 100 square feet, but it was enough for us. And so started at that point and yeah, set up my home gym. And as you know, like even, commercial gyms, at least the ones that were available to us around here at the time, I could get a better setup at home than I can find there oftentimes. And I don't have to wait for somebody to finish doing whatever they're doing in the squat rack before I can use it.
So some people they keep their gym membership, because there's like the community piece, but then also they do home workouts. Was that something you found value in, that you needed that community element? Or are you like, we're going home gym like all the way?
Yeah, I'm not a social lifter, actually. Like, it's not so much my thing. I do like to be pretty focused when I'm in there. And even at the stage where, like, with my wife and I were training, we kind of ultimately came to an understanding, like, it just doesn't work for me to train at the same time you're training. Like, either I'm there to assist you or I'm just training, because I would just find that I was even still at a stage then. Even today, I'm still trying to figure stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
And so that mental energy that was going into that would be challenging to then be training with someone else at the same time. And so for me, it was a great transition. Although I do maintain a membership, it comes in handy because it's a anytime fitness membership. So basically, like, we just came back from a trip up in the mountains. Hey, I got 2 training sessions in because there's an anytime fitness pretty much everywhere. And so I was able to get in there, train even when we're on vacation. And then every now and again, like just for a little bit of change of pace, hey, let me just go in there. I mean, pre-COVID at least, like I would do that semi-regularly, just go in and just train there just for the little bit of variety. But now that we have our better setup here at home, I find myself doing that less and less.
When you were in the class, I saw 2 things. From the coaching side, from the teacher side of that group, I saw you were coaching individual lifters. A couple started, I think, while we were in the middle of the class. Let me not tell your story. So what brought you to the coaching academy in the first place? Like, why did you take up that education piece? You're already coaching people. You're getting, that learning. Why did you take the next step? What was that choice for you?
It was pretty intentional. And actually, it started with becoming a BLOC client. I knew that for me to be a coach, I needed to be coached. I knew that from the very beginning, practically. And so I actually signed up back in, I guess, about 2018 or so. I signed up with BLOC. Bill Hannon was my coach, actually. And that was the early stages of like the coaching academy. He had a Facebook page and this and that. And so I joined that. I got really excited about, hey, here's an opportunity. And so I had actually signed up with BLOC, requested him to actually be my coach with the intention that I ultimately wanted to be a coach. And so I was actually a client for a full year before the coaching academy even became like really an established thing that somebody could even join. But I was a client for the purposes of being a coach.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I learned a lot through that process. that I now carry into my own coaching. And so then I had an opportunity to go to a coach's camp in Atlanta. That was early 2019, I believe, and participated in that. And then from there, I made the commitment to join the coaching academy. And that's when I got hooked up with Group 25. And really just kind of as one progression to the next in terms of what my intention was way back when I just signed up as a client.
It's so funny to like most students, most people that I meet, when I hear them tell their story, becoming a client, the having a coach, the coach who inspired them, something like that, that was one of those accidental discoveries. Or maybe that was the inciting moment for them where they're like, oh, I realized I could be a coach because my coach, inspired me to change. For you, that was intentional. For you, that was a choice like, I want to learn how to coach. So I need to be coached.
Right.
When you made that choice, did you have an idea of how long it was going to take? Okay, I'm going to work with a coach for 1 year, and then was it planned for you, or how did that work? Like, was it just, I'll start getting coached and eventually kind of pick up knowledge?
Yes. I'm not super intentional like that. I'm not the type of person that has like the 3-5 year plan laid out and everything's working in that sequence, but I have a general intention of where I'm headed. And so I got into that knowing that there wasn't even actually like a coaching academy. It didn't even really exist yet, but I knew that it was kind of coming down the line. There was talk about it. There was some stuff moving in that direction. So I said, hey, I'm going to do this and then just continue on that. And then when I'm ready and it's ready, then I'll jump into that stage as my next progression. But definitely, I purely became a client to learn how to coach.
That's super cool. And at this point, now this is interesting. So cart before the horse, horse before the cart, so to speak. Did you have clients? So obviously there you were, coaching your wife. Did you have other people that you were helping by this point who were like, I need to be a better coach in order to serve them? Or was this filling I see this potential in me to become a coach? I would love to expand this. I'll get coached first. Where did that fit chicken and egg wise for you?
It was really more kind of just that progression of like, if I want to actually do this for real, I'm going to have to learn properly how to do it. And I was having my experience with my family. So basically my wife, we kind of started in this thing together. She'd kind of be on and off a little bit. Sometimes she'd be training. Sometimes she wouldn't train for a while. And then my youngest son, who's now 18, at that time was about 16, had some interest. And so I started coaching him a little bit and just teaching him the progressions of the lifts and, as imperfectly as I could at that particular stage.
Yeah.
But it was still experience for me. And so he was training as well. And so that's kind of where it started for me there. And I kind of went through this stage of like, do I want to put myself out there as somebody does this? Because I don't know if I'm ready to actually take on people that would actually pay me to do this. And it was interesting. It was actually at the coaching camp in Atlanta that I really kind of got inspired that like, hey, I could actually do this. And even imperfectly, it's better than what most people are probably getting generally. And so, and actually I have to credit Cody Amino. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly.
I think Anino.
Up in Connecticut, because it was in a little bit of a sidebar at that camp where he was just talking to us and he was actually making that case to us that even you guys at this stage are better than the general trainers that you're going to find at most gyms. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, was kind of his message to us. And that inspired me. That actually inspired me to like, okay. And I had some experiences. I remember one time I was at an Anytime Fitness. We're on a trip at the beach and my wife and I were there training and I was going through my training and next to us in the next, a squat rack over was one of their trainers there. And this poor lady, she'd come in to get some training, some coaching, and he was having her squat that day. And I kept looking at that and I was like,
a little frustrating.
Oh my God, like she's paying him for this. And she ultimately never really squatted. She maybe did one set. She seemed very frustrated. I saw kind of all the things that we're taught not to do. He spent most of the time talking. She was just kind of trying to do stuff. And that was the session. She left. And I was like, at that moment, I was like, I could do this way better. So let me put myself out there. And so I just started to kind of present myself. Yeah, this is what I do.
I'd be curious now, going through a lot of our students, going through a lot of these conversations, how many people had an anti-inspiration moment? because I had that same experience too. And it wasn't so much I looked at this guy, I looked at somebody that I saw operating in gym and I'm like, ooh, like, that was terrible. But it's just like, it's that feeling that my experience as a naval officer, my experience as helping people through these different things, just let me know not to do that. So maybe even if it's just a $15 or an $8 an hour, depends on which gym they're operating at, intro level, like, okay, if they can take that coach, if they can take that trainer, they could take me. I'd be curious to see how many people have that kind of reverse inspiration.
Right.
So for you realized, okay, I thought the floor was up here above me. Maybe it's kind of down there. Maybe
Yes.
I'm already above the floor.
No, definitely. Definitely. And I'll tell you, the teaching progression script helped a lot because it's a way of just knowing, hey, there's a very specific way to teach a lift. And yeah, granted, over time, we'll modify that script a little bit as we gain more experience, but it's a great starting point because it's just like, okay, it's kind of cookie cutter in a sense. You can bring a person in, you can walk them through, and you can generally get them moving decently. That builds confidence. And so being able to do that built up my confidence to where, okay, hey, I can have somebody come in. I'll take them through that process. I'll get them moving. And if they want to continue on after that, awesome.
And for so many coaches, they think, oh, I've got to be a great coach before I can coach. And half the time it's really just, how do I not suck? Like, if I can
Right.
just not suck, then I can deliver something really useful to people.
Well, right. And you only become a good coach by actually coaching. That's kind of like the thing here. And I have to say, at least from my own experience, when you actually start the process of coaching people that are paying you, it changes that dynamic a little bit. Like, at least for me, it's not that I didn't take it seriously when I was training my wife and son, but you really start to like, okay, I know this person's coming in. They're coming in at X time. I got to have everything ready. You're going through the process in your mind. You even maybe even mock practicing the progressions. What am I going to do? All of that kind of stuff, because it just changes that a little bit. When that exchange occurs, you're like, okay, I'm on. I got my coach hat on. I'm ready to do this. And by just continuing to do that, I mean, it just kind of ups your game a little bit.
We talk about, trying to get their skin in the game somehow. That maybe it's cash, maybe it's something else. But sometimes we also forget it puts the coach's skin in the game. It changes your identity when that exchange happens. Like you think of yourself as a coach, and that's a new thing.
Definitely. Definitely. And for me, it's just my nature a little bit. I like to do things well. I don't like to do things kind of halfway. And so even I think to others around me maybe saw it as a little interesting, but like I had this little one room office in my house, people literally walking through my living room to actually get to it. But I presented myself as a professional. I made sure what I wore conveyed that I was a professional in what I did. Every process I did, it was important to me that it conveyed that this is a professional exchange. This isn't just, hey, come in, I'll just show you some stuff, we'll hang out a little bit. No, it's real.
Not so much fake it till you make it, but bring your game.
Yes.
Bring your best self to that engagement.
Right.
So that they take it seriously too.
Right.
Hell yeah. But you at some point had to get a client.
Yes.
So you have a home gym, you have some coaching experience, you have the intention of becoming a coach.
Right.
How did you get a client? I mean, that's one of the biggest questions we get.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing this as a side hustle. I'm doing this out of my home gym. Like, this has been me coaching family and friends. Where do I find people?
What I started to do was taking advantage of just presenting that I did this in social media. So just amongst my quote unquote friends in Facebook, I would just keep posting my own training. I'd show that, my wife and I training this and that. And so it became known amongst my circle that this is what I did. I mean, it was kind of my thing. And because of that, people would actually just start to talk to me about it. And in the course of talking about it, I would just pop in, kind of the positive things that I see from it, why I do it, things like that. And ultimately, like I didn't overtly really just say, hey, I'm taking clients, anybody ready to sign up? It was just really more through personal connection. So my first client is actually a friend of mine. I'm part of a men's group, actually, and we get together a couple times a month. And just through the course of that, they got to know that that's definitely what I did. And he was at a stage himself where he's kind of like approaching the 40s. thinking that like this is something that he needs to do something for himself. And so he just talked to me about it. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to coach you. Come on in. And he was actually my first like solid, like real client in a sense.
Yeah.
And he's actually still with me today. Like that's the thing. Like he's been with me for
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
God, almost like 3 years now in that sense. But that's how it got started for me. And then someone I work with got to know this is what I do. She was interested. Similar situation. I keep finding myself in this age group, approaching the 40s, into 40s, that kind of group. And I love working in that age group. At that point, people that are making a commitment to train are generally a little more serious about it. It's like they're making an intentional step towards trying to get better physically, and they see this as a way to do it. And so I started training her. I kind of luck out a little bit because she's very social. So she'd post stuff online. She would talk to friends. She'd be telling everybody, this is what she's doing. She's working with me, this and that. And so then from that, I've, a couple clients come in there. So it's word of mouth, essentially. It's essentially just kind of getting those first couple people going that you're training. And then from there, it's just kind of built out to where now I have 4 steady clients that I'm coaching on a weekly basis at this point. And that's kind of almost my capacity currently in terms of what I can do in terms of space, schedule, all that kind of stuff. But it did just start off with me just putting myself out there that people started to see me as the go-to person for barbells. I mean, it was just kind of the thing like, yeah, this is my friend or this is the guy I know, and he does this. This is the thing that he does. And so then when that interest would be piqued a little bit, then, I'm the person they think of when they think that maybe they want to try to do that.
I'm curious. There's a little bit of like everything, like you can't see me, dear listener, through the screen. I'm just smiling like a lot because this is when we talk about, social media is social. Like when we talk about, talking to people and engaging with people, one of the first things I hear is, oh, I don't want to come across as sleazy. I don't want this to be like, oh, I'm doing, a multi-level marketing scheme or reaching out or advertising to family. And it's like, if this is something you care about, if you got a friend who's into snowboarding, they're into snowboarding because they talk about it. And there's nothing, it's just something that they're passionate about in their life. And if you decide to go snowboarding one day, you're going to talk to your friend, David the snowboarder.
Right.
If you decide like, just like you did when you were, hit that 40 point, which is, part of, I'm sure why, you find people in that 40 range, because there are people like you who start thinking, how am I going to help my health? And then David over here is talking about something he's passionate about, improved his health. He loves, lifting barbells. Who are you going to talk to?
Right.
Anyway, like the reason bringing that back around, how long did that process take? So from when you had that first conversation, like how long did this take to build for you?
Starting from when I first started just kind of putting myself out there that I train, or just when I made the internal kind of shift that I'm going to actually really like work towards getting clients?
If you have kind of a clear mental timeline or even a rough mental timeline for yourself, I'd love to hear both, like just how that flowed.
I want to say, it's been an evolving process. And I've been at it. Like my first paid client was in 2019. And that coincided a little bit with me joining the academy and all of that. And so, I'd have to say just since the time I just kind of set that intention. And I know it sounds a little kind of airy a little bit, but I do believe that if you mentally set the intention, this is what you're working towards, things kind of just start to come as a result. And so I had really set that intention. I want to coach. I want to start getting people coming to me to train. And I think that would also set things up a little bit, that when I was in group situations, I would put myself out there. This is who I am. It's what I do. I think also the thing that helps too, frankly, is that people see physical differences in you versus the person you're standing next to. And they're like, oh, that dude's like doing something that maybe I might want to do. And that helps.
And they see picture in you over time. I remember there was a Facebook post you had, it was a while ago, but you posted about your strength training journey. I think it was in Iron Eagle. And somebody posted, where did that skinny kid, from Gainesville go? Or, where did that skinny kid that I knew go? Because you gained, so much muscle, you gained so much strength. Like people see you changing.
Right.
People who have known you for a long time.
No, definitely. They see that transformation. And this is the thing that I absolutely love about, not to get too like internal, but in terms of what we do specifically with BLOC, is this concept that you cannot be a coach unless you're actually doing this. Because the reality is you're not going to be a good coach if you don't know what it's like to get under a heavy barbell for a squat. You don't know the emotional feeling that your clients are going through, but it also is that transformation that you go through personally is so much part of that process. And so people witnessing that, people seeing that, I find at least it inspires people. It actually attracts people in a sense like, hey, this person's doing something a little different than everyone else around me. And if they have that curiosity and you're not afraid to be out there with it, I don't mean to be out there in a boisterous way or anything like that.
Broadcasting to the world.
Yeah, not like that. It's not my personality, frankly, but just people know, hey, this is what he does. And then when that time comes for them where they're like, like many of us, I got to do something. Hey, this guy's doing this thing. They just come to me. And that's kind of what I've experienced. I'm not very good, and it's something that I need to develop more skill in terms from a promotional standpoint, things like that. But at least in my initial stages, it's been just being okay, being out there with this is what I do and be willing to share it. And then through that, people get to know you. And then naturally, I see clients coming as a result.
But you're capped. So all that makes perfect sense to me. And I know people who are like, okay, yeah, but to make the leap from my 9 to 5 to this, I would need to make X number of money. So I need 20 clients. There's no way I'm getting 20 clients from people just, kind of onesie twosies. For you though, 4 was your capacity. How did you come to that? Like, how do you know it's 4?
That's interesting. It's actually my early stages of coaching was really hard to manage. My working life, my family commitments, and then coaching. And then on top of that, my own training.
Yeah.
And so I remember when we were going through the coaching academy, one of the assignments was listen to, Paul Horn. He has a great video on his journey to being a coach and starting his gym and all of that. And one of the first things he says is like, it has an impact on your training. Just look at me. So that's kind of like I was laughing then when I heard that, but it's true. And so for me, those early stages were a little rocky in terms of how do I balance this out? I got people that want me to train them. I got work. I have all these other commitments. And the thing that actually resonated with me greatly was another presentation that Andy Baker did. And he specifically talked about getting really clear up front what you're willing to commit to in your schedule to coach. And don't deviate from it. Even if you have somebody that comes to you and says, oh no, I can only train at 6 a.m. on these days, you're not available.
And it's like, sorry, yeah, I can't coach you.
I can't coach you. I'm sorry. I only have this availability. And so I started to get really clear, like, how can I sanely manage my life, still coach, still get my own training in, and meet all my other responsibilities. And so that's where I got really clear with it is like for me right now, I have 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I have 2 1-hour blocks or about 1.5 hour, 2 1.5 hour blocks I've established in the late afternoon of the day. And when I have people that are interested in training with me, they have to fit within one of those blocks. I've also designated some time on Saturdays, a multi-hour block where I would just set aside. It's in the calendar. It's there. This is the day and time where I would do an intake for somebody who's new to training. Like this is where we take them to the progression before I put them in a weekly schedule. It's also the block I'm reserving for when kind of we get past the pandemic to where I want to resume some of my group classes, which I was doing before the pandemic.
Yeah, you're doing like a strongman conditioning group thing, right?
Yeah, we're doing the strongman conditioning classes, and those are fun. That is maybe another entry point to consider for coaches trying to kind of get clients going because it's very low commitment. Literally, I advertise that we're doing this thing. People sign up, they show up, we spend about an hour or so, and then they start to wonder kind of what else is going on here. And they already, in one way, know me as barbell training is primarily what occurs, but this is just a really simple and easy entry to just kind of get to know what's going on. And so, but once the pandemic hit, I shut all that down. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to restarting that. And actually, the inspiration from that came from a trip to California. We were out there for Christmas, And I'd always wanted to go to Alan Thrall's gym in Sacramento at Untamed Strength. And so I took the drive out there early one morning and got out there and to do one of his strongman conditioning classes because I have seen them, he posted them and they're like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. So I did it and seeing kind of how he arranges it and how he managed it with us, I was like, hey, I could do something like this. And I could actually set this up pretty easily. The advantage of strongman is like, it doesn't require a lot of expensive equipment. As long as you're industrious, you can come up with all sorts of stuff that you can do.
Yeah.
and that's kicked that off for me. And that's what I started doing that. But it was pretty short lived because, pretty soon the pandemic hit and all that. But I do look forward to restarting that. And now that our gym space here is more developed, I think I'm going to be able through that actually probably have more people gain interest in strength training here. I do also have an interest in starting to do some smaller group like mini camps. We'll focus on one particular lift. We'll talk about the benefits of strength, all that kind of stuff, and maybe have 4 or 5 people come in for something like that in the space that we have now. But in terms of schedule, like going back to that original question, it was really me getting really clear, like this is how I can sanely manage my life. And I can coach and I can train and all of those things too. And it made a huge difference.
You kind of have to know your priority first. Like your first priority wasn't being a coach. So you couldn't just slot as many, like somebody comes to you and says, like, oh, I want to work with you. And I'll figure it out. I'm going to make it happen so that I can coach it. You're still family. You're still at a school. Like you got all these other things going on.
Right.
And I love the fact that you scheduled it. Like so many of us, whether it's a workout or whatever, but you put in a block and it's like, this is in my calendar. This is it.
Right. And that came over time after a lot of frustration. And it was actually only just more recently I got really clear, like this is what it worked. This is what works for me. And so basically, it does set some constraints though, because I am capped. Essentially, I could have 4 full-time lifters. So I could train 4 people that are coming to me 3 days a week. That's pretty much what my capacity is going to be. But I'm okay with that currently. Like at this stage right now, if I could have 4 lifters 3 days a week, consistent, even have potentially a pipeline of people that are waiting for a slot to open up, to me, that would be pretty good. And that's what I'm working towards right now, is just really kind of getting that firmly established so that I know that I have a consistent kind of stream of people lined up to train. If, say, for whatever reason, I have a lifter that's with me that decides they're going to maybe take a break or something occurs for them, I now can bring somebody else in.
It's so funny. You have what some coaches, would consider the dream spot, like a waiting list, quote unquote, and, like a full calendar. But because your priorities are where they are, yeah, I love the frustrations. Like you got to brush by that a little bit. But yeah, that first part is really chaotic. And I don't know what my boundaries are. I don't know what my time is. And then because you have that figured out with clarity now, like, you can look forward to those things. You can kind of simmer on future projects and not have to jump after them. Like you don't have to do a mini camp right now. You could just, how would I develop this? What would that look like? And that's pretty awesome.
Right. No. But it came through a lot of frustration, but I'm happy where I'm at right now. Like just settling into this, it made a huge difference for me. And I think I'd mentioned to you in some other context, just it came from this idea of just really scheduling my life out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And for me right now, though, what it means is that for me to get my training in, I got to get up like at 4:30 in the morning, because now I have my training slot is like really early before work. But that's what works for me right now.
Training always seems to be the one that like kind of takes that 3rd or 4th burner spot.
Right. But for me, it was really important to me. I didn't let that fall away because it was always my tendency to do that. I would prioritize the coaching to the point to where I wasn't training myself. And then, as you know, like you go a few weeks without training, that starts to have its downstream effects. And I just don't feel like I'm authentic as a coach if I'm not actually training myself. And so that's when I made that shift. And so, yeah, 4:30 in the morning, sometimes it does feel like medicine, but I've acclimated over time to make that work.
Good man. Oh, I'm so not a morning person. Like after years and years in the Navy, like nowadays, recently I tried, to bring my schedule back to like a 5:30 or a 6 o'clock wake up. And I'm just like, oh, like, ugh.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm right there with you. It just, but it's one of those things. Like it's just, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen then.
Yeah. So you sort of have to make it happen.
Right.
Now you said it sort of settled into where it is over time and getting clarity. You didn't just stop though. You didn't just kind of let it ride. You expanded. And I thought this was super
Yeah.
cool. It was near the end of 2020. You expanded Iron Eagle Strength, your garage gym, that you've got running. Why did you make that choice? What kind of drove that choice? And how much of a pain was that?
Yeah, no, it was interesting because the thing is that going back to capacity. And so if time is a constraint, but space was also a constraint. And I felt that if I could get to the point where I could actually have 2 lifters in the gym at the same time, I doubled my capacity essentially. And it had been a thought in my mind for many months. The way that our space is set up here, this original room that I started in, what used to be a bigger space, it ultimately got divided and it was my son's bedroom. And so after some discussion, and actually I have to say, a great willingness of my son to like, oh, awesome, man, we're going to have a bigger gym. I'm all for it. I'll move to whatever room we need to move to. So I was like, great. So once we had that commitment secured and we got his room all reestablished, then now there was this empty space and we just went for it. We knocked out the interior walls. We did what we needed to do and more than doubled the space to actually have clients in here. And it's night and day difference. Basically, we're able to create this space now to where I have 2 lifters in here at the same time. I have 2 racks. We're not bumping into each other. It has all the space that's necessary at this stage of development for Iron Eagle Strength. It has its own entrance. Like everything is just set up perfectly. I don't have people walking through my living room anymore, all this stuff. And I mean, it was fun. I mean, I like doing this kind of stuff. I mean, doing improvements, tearing out walls, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I love doing that stuff. So again, my son came in, he helped me and, we knocked it out during a 2-week, actually 1 week. We have for school, we have that Thanksgiving break period is a 1-week period, our fall break, and just jumped right into it and just like went for it, took the wall out, did everything we needed to do. And by the end of that period, essentially had the gym set up with 2 platforms, 2 racks and everything else. And so, yeah, that's been fun. And it's been great to have it because another aspect of what I've wanted to create here is that sense of community. And having more lifters in the space at the same time creates that. It's just not me with them, me trying to think about what to keep talking about so that it's just not dead silent.
Like the one-on-one is so tough because you spend more time in your rest between sets than you actually do lifting. It's like, hey, hey, dude.
Exactly. And I'm not a big conversationalist. It's not my nature so much. And so now if I have 2 lifters in here, they're talking with each other. They're inspired by each other. They're learning from each other. And that's a big thing that I want to create is that sense of community, that sense of inspiration, not from me, but from each other. And, they're seeing somebody go through their progression of development. They're seeing them work through stuff and then they're doing the same. And I think it lends a lot once we're able to do that. And it's just expanded the possibilities. So now I can actually have, ultimately I can have this expansion of clients I can serve as a result of it because the spaces will support it.
I remember when we were going through Group 25, you would share videos of you coaching and we would provide videos, like the group would provide, feedback on your videos on your lifter or on you. And I remember you were having to kind of do the dance around them. So it was not a closet, but it was pretty constrained. And how can you fit the camera in the corner so you could actually kind of get a view of the lifter? So to see you grow that space and see everything that happens there, but also all the pieces that go to it. I mean, on the one hand, I'm not as handy. So it would take more steps for me to get that. And at first it feels overwhelming, but as you're breaking it down, it's like, oh, broke that out with my son. What does the next space look like? We booked a week, we booked 2 weeks. We planned this out. Even to me, who's been an apartment dweller for so many years, I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I feel like that's possible.
No, definitely possible. And the other aspect of this that's been really important to me is we've grown it organically. And so it's not that I've borrowed money. I haven't done anything like that to make this happen. Essentially, when I got serious about coaching, established a separate bank account, did all of those things. I bill my clients. They pay for what they're doing here. That money is getting set aside. And to date, it's not like I'm quote unquote earning money from my coaching at this point because I'm reinvesting it back into developing the coaching practice. And so everything we did here, we did with money earned from coaching clients. And everything I've been doing going forward, whether it's my own personal development as a coach, it's, whatever necessary within this realm, is directly coming from the money that's earned from my actual coaching as opposed to investing outside money into it.
So in some ways, it's a self-funding hobby. It's sort of like you're building this infrastructure. By the time you're ready, if you ever choose to make it full time, you have all the space in the world. Or, you have the space, you have the education, you have the systems, you have the insurance, you have all those things lined up already.
Right. And it's just important to me. It's important to me to do it in a way that's, like I said, organic. Because again, to jump in, make a big money commitment to things, and it's just never been the way that I feel is a good way to go forward with developing something. So in our instance here, we've been able to do that. And yeah, self-perpetuating at this point. And yeah, it establishes a really good foundation for what we can build from it.
You still have all these other commitments. The kids have left the roost, so to speak. So you got a little bit more space there, but you're still a family man. You still got your head of school responsibilities. You still got a few clients. All these time commitments still built up. There's that feeling like if I'm going to grow one, I have to cut the other. Like I'd have to lose the other. When you look at your priorities, what's the next step on your coaching journey? Like, do you see this as something that is eventually, oh yeah, I'm going to become a coach full time. This is going to be my career? Or right now, does this always hold a place, in the constellation? It's, one of the things you do.
Right now, it's one of the things that I do. Again, I've been involved with BV Academy for going on 14 years at this point as head of school. We still have a lot of work to do there in terms of what we're trying to grow and what we're trying to develop there. I have a deep sense of responsibility for that. And at the same time, I see my coaching practice as something that can continue to develop alongside with it. And if the opportunity came where it seemed like things were developing enough to where I felt comfortable with where things were at there, and I could gradually reduce my role a bit, I could then start to give more time to coaching, maybe open up some slots, start to do some things with that. I could see maybe potentially a transition down the road. I think we're many years off from that, but I could definitely see that. I would see it probably as a more gradual thing that would occur over time. And I still have so much more development to do myself to actually be a coach that I feel is actually worthy to have the responsibility I have with the clients that I have. And so for me, it's still continually a process of developing myself. I think the next big step for me is working on my certification and actually going forward with that. And so that's kind of the progression I see going forward for me right now.
So often I hear about financial entanglements. Oh, I earn so much doing X. I would have to earn so much doing as a coach to make up for that. And what you brought up is what sounds to me, it's like a mission entanglement. You have a purpose. Like you are doing things you care about at BV Academy. You have a commitment, and you said like a deep personal responsibility for the mission there. So you're not going to drop that yet. It's not something you're going to lose.
Right. Right. But right now I'm able to strike a pretty nice balance. And I've learned over time. I mean, I used to be one of these people that would just like 24/7, every hour, I'm just working on, at that stage with a school to the detriment of everything else around me. And I think over time, I've learned to become a little more balanced in that, to where I can hold this responsibility, but it doesn't have to consume my life. And that's opened up the opportunity now to then explore other things. Coaching being one of the big things that I do, and I enjoy it. I mean, I truly enjoy the opportunity to have people come into the gym on almost a daily basis, work with them, those relationships that are developed from that, and continuing to grow this and develop it. That's inspirational for me, to actually take something from almost nothing and start to grow and build it and develop it. That charges me up. And so it's important for me to kind of continue to have stuff like that in my life.
Balance. Like that was kind of a word as I'm listening there kind of struck out or stood out. You said it a couple of times because growth is satisfying in and of its own, to see the practice growing, to see something like that. But without balance, you could see your practice going, out of control compared to your other priorities. I know that happened for me. That's the reason I think about it. There was definitely a 2-3 year period. There was a year when I couldn't train, actually, like where I just stopped. I was like, training one time a week, because I was primarily spending, when you count gray time, like driving time, is sometimes, 45, 50, 55-hour weeks, at CrossFit gym, plus online coaching, family obligations, we're starting to save money because we're looking at having a kid, or, we were at the time, all these different things building up. Like, as I'm listening to you, there's that little voice in me like, oh, I wish I had, I wish I had that wisdom. I wish I had that sense to think about balance in that way when I was going through that process. And maybe it grew in you. Maybe it wasn't there at the beginning.
It definitely wasn't there in the beginning. And that's the thing, that for me, this has been a development. This has been an evolution for me along the way. And I attribute a lot of it to what I do in the gym. I just, learning how to just kind of be more okay with a balanced lifestyle is something that I've just grown into over time, because over the course of my life, I'm horrible at it. Talk to my wife, my kids, they'll tell you that. But I've learned to become more so. And it's, again, a saying that I heard, I don't know who exactly to attribute it to, but just to think about things in the way that for everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And so I've just been methodically very careful about what I'm willing to say yes to, because I know that it has an impact. That time or mental energy I'm going to put into that thing means that I'm not going to have the same time or mental energy for this other thing. And so just carefully evaluating those commitments one by one, so I just didn't find myself in a situation that I was regretting.
Mind blown.
From the School of Hard Knocks,
Right?
that's where that comes from.
Well, David, it's honestly been such a pleasure having you on. Like, because even while we were in Group 25, catching bits and pieces of your story and through video and, watching through Facebook, like some of the expansions and the changes you've made. But I love hearing it from you, like from start to finish. It truly is a journey that I wish I had heard, like when I was starting. In so many ways, transitioning from the Navy into like the way I did. Like, I did the full leap, like, hey, let's do this. And maybe that wasn't the way for me, or maybe there could have been another way. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. CJ, I have to say, like, you've been a major inspiration for me. And I feel like across my coaching journey, I've lucked out. Like, I've had just the right people at the right time, and joining Group 25, being connected with you through that group and what you're doing now. Like, and I think you had asked the other day, like, hey, what are Facebook groups that inspire you? I'm like, actually, yours the only Facebook group that I even really participate in, because the thing I appreciate about you is you really are advocating ongoing development as a coach. Like, this is what we need to do. Like, if you want to be good as a coach, it doesn't just stop at a certain point. It's growth, and it's continual growth. And you're continuing to push that boundary. And I'm amazed, like, how you even have the time to share all the things that you share. But that's what inspires me. And that's what keeps me going. So yeah, I got to thank you profusely. You're a major inspiration for what I'm able to do here in Gainesville, Florida. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And when you're like, I don't know how you had the time, I'm like, sometimes I don't either. But it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we'll definitely stay up after, we will definitely keep up.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity.